And so Job responds in the next couple of chapters. And he begins in chapter 6 and he says, "Oh, that my grief were fully weighed, and my calamity laid with it on the scales, for then it would be heavier than the sand of the sea. Therefore my words have been rash." Hey, look, I've said these things that I've said. Why was I ever born? Why couldn't I just die? Why does God allow these things to happen? If you could see the heaviness of my sorrow. And you see, that's the point that Eliphaz and the other guys are missing. They're not seeing the heaviness laying upon Job. They're responding to what he's saying. People who are in crisis say all kinds of things. And you have to kind of cut through what they're saying and let the Lord lead you to the heart of what is their sorrow and help bear their burden, not correct their thinking. Once you start going into correcting their thinking, you've lost your opportunity to bear their burden with them. Because now you're there, and in their eyes, you're here to correct them. And all they will know and see in you is you have no clue, buddy. And you don't have a clue. I wouldn't have a clue facing someone like Job because I haven't experienced that myself. But I have experienced tragedy, and I have experienced despondency and despair. Not exactly like Job, but I have known that enough to know, shut up and listen. Cry with those who are crying. Weep with them. Let them speak. It's not the time in the midst of the sorrow to correct them. There is a time for that. There is a time for that. Because some people, unlike Job here, some people hold on to that grief, hold on to that despair, hold on to that despondency. It becomes a friend to them. And that's a whole entirely different situation. Entirely different. We're talking about somebody who's right in the midst of it, right at that raw edge of the sorrow. Job basically says, you don't understand how heavy my suffering is. And then again, he says in verses 8 and 9, oh, that God would just put me out of my misery. God, just crush me. And then in verse 14, he lets loose on old elephant man here. Verse 14, to him who is afflicted, kindness should be shown by his friend, even though he forsakes the fear of the Almighty. He's saying, look, I said some things that, I wasn't very respectful to God, saying, hey, well, how can you let this happen? But even when I do that, you should be showing some kindness to me, not correcting me. Verse 15, my brothers have dealt deceitfully like a brook. And then he goes on in this poetic way and says something that happens in the desert. You get these arroyos where in the springtime suddenly, man, it's like a river. And then the rest of the year, there's nothing there but sand. He's saying, that's what you guys are like to me. I was expecting, hey, my 3 good buddies came all this way just to be with me. And they were willing to sit with me and just cry with me for 7 days. And now this is what comes out of your mouth. Thank you very much. I'm looking like on a hot day to go and find a cold stream where I could get a cold drink. And this is what I get? Ugh. I looked for comfort from you. And then he says something in verse 25. He says, how forceful are right words. But what does your arguing prove? You see, we're going to find that a lot of what these 3 comforters said is true. Theologically, in a lot of places, they're exactly correct. But man, they are way out of context. Going about things totally in the wrong way. He says, do you intend to rebuke my words and the speeches of a desperate one, which are as wind? Job is instructing them here. Here, Job, the suffering righteous man, is instructing these guys who came to comfort him by saying, look, this isn't the best way to come and comfort your good friend. Because my words, they're just like wind. They're just the cries of anguish. Don't listen to the theological implications of them. Listen to what my heart is saying. My heart is broken. Jesus said his ministry was to come to bind up the brokenhearted, not correct the theology of the brokenhearted. Now, someone can take this message online and from a CD and take that sentence and take it out of context and email me 25 times and tell me that theology doesn't matter. I heard Pastor Kevin say it here on this date. And I'm telling you, listen to everything I'm saying. Yes, Jesus came to establish correct theology. Absolutely. But when you encounter someone who is brokenhearted, the first thing to do is to bind their wounds. If you walked out of the church today, and God forbid suddenly you heard tires screech, and there were a horrible auto accident right there, right in front of the church, and you go running out, and there are people that are bleeding, and there are body parts where they shouldn't be, and there are cries of anguish. And you go running out, and you find a person who's laying there, and they're bleeding from several places on their body. And they're crying out for help. And you go and you kneel down next to them. And you go, what were you thinking? Didn't you see the light was red? You see what I'm saying? No. Go and stop the bleeding. The driver's education can happen later. At the appropriate time. The first thing to do is stop the bleeding. Bring life and comfort. Then in chapter 7, 17 through 21, Job cries out to God. He says, what is man that you should exalt him, that you should set your heart on him, that you should visit him every morning and test him every moment? How long will you not look away from me? And let me alone till I swallow my saliva, which is a euphemism for dying. Have I sinned? What have I done to you, O watcher of men? Why have you set me as your target so that I am a burden to myself? Some translations say, so that I am a burden to you. Why then do you not pardon my transgression and take away my iniquity? For now I will lie down in the dust, and you will seek me diligently, but I will no longer be. Job's comforters accuse him of sin. And Job will say again and again, I am blameless. But Job is not saying he is sinless. What his comforters are saying, alleged comforters, is you deserve this. You can blame yourself for the condition you're in. And what Job is saying, no, it isn't that I'm perfectly righteous, but I am blameless. There is not something in my heart or in my life right now that I deserve this. He recognizes he's a sinful man right here. Here was the man who would offer burnt offerings for his children in case they sinned and were not aware of it. That's how concerned he was, and a recognition of transgression and sinfulness, and even in his own life. So it isn't that Job is this prideful, hey, I've never sinned in my life. What have I done? No, he knows that. But he's saying, I'm blameless in this. I'm blameless in this.